Welcome everyone. My name is Sérgio. I'm from Portugal and I will be speaking in English. If you want to ask me questions in Portuguese, English or Swedish is okay. And I will try to translate if needed. I will be here in the end also. If someone has specific questions, I'm very happy to talk about more specific things. I'm quite curious about you guys. I wonder, for example, how much Vue have you worked with? Could I have like a hands raised for people that have worked with Vue in production, for example? Cool. And people that have experienced with Vue and are aware of the API? Cool. And people that are curious about Vue but never actually tried things about it? Cool. Nice. That helps me a bit to plan what to talk about. And if you see or if you feel that I miss you because you want to talk either more complex stuff or more simple stuff, you're welcome to bump to me in the end. Yeah. Cool. I will get started. I work as a CTO at Prurunata. Prurunata is a company here in Stockholm that makes a medical journal for schools in Sweden. So we have like Malmö city and other some cities in Sweden, and we make a medical journal so that doctors and nurses can write things from their appointments with students. You can use it in clinics and stuff. So we have a lot of regulation, and that is kind of challenging for us. It's actually mostly a back-end issue, but it's still complex for the front end when you think about XSS attacks and things that can actually get hand to things on server. Before being a CTO, I worked as a front-end developer. I still am one of the senior developers at work, so I still work a lot with Vue. My assignment, my goal when I started to work in that company was to refactor a very big legacy Backbone.js app to either React or Vue. So we had like a brainstorming period of 2-3 months, try different things. And we went with Vue just because it suited us better. We work a lot with Django, so Python, and it's the same flavor more or less, handlebars and kind of the templates that we used before. So we went for Vue. We are really happy with that. I love React also. I have very good friends also working in React. From my past when I worked open source with MoTools, I don't know if someone knows about it. It was a long time ago. I joined the team kind of late, and I committed a lot to the repo, and many people from there went to Facebook to work. So I have big respect and admire React. But now I'm going to talk about Vue, which I'm much more familiar with. And apart from that, I'm a musician. Actually, my university education is in classical violin. My master's degree is in classical violin, and I played a lot, and I still play. I've been touring around the world, and besides that, I also like tech. So I've been programming a lot since I got my 128K Spectrum when I was 12 or 13 or whatever, and I've been kind of coding since there more or less. So if you want to talk about music in the end, that's also okay. I don't mind. But yeah, so here we go. I have 3 kids. I was going to say 2, but now I have Sara also, that she's 4 months old. But I have 2 kids from before. They are 13 and 14, and they try to get as much time to play computer as possible, and I try to get them away from that. So one day the best solution I got was to build kind of a small app just for fun with them. It kind of defeats the purpose of not looking at the screen, but it was fun. And I would like to teach them programming, right? So this is what I did with them. Do you guys want to see it working, or do you want to see the code first? Code first. Yeah, yes. Do you want a glass of wine, red or white? Full. Thank you. Yeah, I get it. So here we have something that I called Vue Rocket. It's really simple, but it was really fun to build it with them. So you can kind of turn the rocket around, and then you press space and it starts to move, and you can like turn it. There's a very complex roadmap that we did together, but I didn't have time to implement it on this weekend that we were having fun. but when the spaceship goes near the sun, things should happen. A bit of the code is implemented, but we didn't go so far. And this is actually really easy. I mean, it's kind of simple app. So I would like to go through it with you. Wrong file. Let's not get scared. Here. Is this okay size, or should I increase it a bit? Is this okay? Yeah. So for those of you that are not familiar with Vue, there's this concept of single file application or single file, where you have both the HTML part, the template, then you have the controller or the JavaScript, and then in the end you have the CSS. And that's kind of nice. Sometimes it makes you make mistakes because you think you want to put everything in that file, and some parts of the logic are on higher levels. But at least for this kind of app, it's really cool. And in this file, it's very neat for everything in the same place. So the HTML doesn't have anything complex. It has a wrapper div, and then it has the background, that space nebula background. It has an image of the sun, and then it has the rocket. And here it's a small wrapper so that I can rotate the rocket easier. And then you start to see things that are like Vue-ish. What is this, and what is two dots, and what is this kind of syntax? So you can send into this template data from the controller, from the JavaScript part. And that's how Vue works. In this case, you have specific attribute for style. It's like declared. In this case, the two dots means it's dynamic. So what's inside this, the quotes, it's actually a value that is part of the instance. So it should kind of be like this dot sun style, but there's some Vue magic happening behind. So you just expose things that are global to the instance, that are available on the dis. Everything that is on the dis of that instance you can use on the template and expose it there. So in this case, sun style, oh yeah, this is on the roadmap. It's actually the position of the sun. In the future we will be doing calculations where the sun is and when the rocket is, so we can do some mathematics. But right now I could have actually put it on the CSS just static, but we didn't get done with that, so sorry. And then you have the rocket style, and that is actually where we spin the rocket and when we move it. So there you have the positioning, and you have some kind of rotation logic. We have a small helping function here to measure to position it, and then we go into the object that defines this component, this Vue app. So when this is mounted on the DOM, it will generate a new Vue instance. So it consumes the object and creates an actual instance for Vue. I suggest that you guys check the Vue docs, the official documentation. It's really good, and there are a lot of native or API methods, things that you can use that I will probably not show everything today. But some of the things for newcomers, it's hard to know what is this. Is this part of the API, or is this a name that you created? So if you have questions, please just ask them. I remember in the beginning it was tricky for me. I can actually say something. In the beginning, when we started to work with Vue, it was very few information on the internet and very little on Stack Overflow. You know, you need to go and search for something not working. So it was kind of hard. So at the time, I started with some other Vue friends in Stockholm, the Stockholm Vue.js meetup. So I'm the founder and organizer of the meetup, and it came up just because I couldn't find answers. Of course, I like people and I like to discuss tech, but also because I needed the forum to ask things. It ended up being me sharing things, but after some time it started to come back also information. So name, it's part of the Vue API. You should have it. The style guide actually says this should be uppercase. Sorry. So, well, not uppercase, but the capitalized. Components, this is where you can import to this specific instance other components that you want to use inside your template. I'm not using it, I just left it there so I can remember to talk about it. You can also register components on the global space so that Vue can use a component everywhere. You do that often with libraries. If you want to import some library for buttons, whatever, you do it like on the config level so that the whole app can use it. You don't have to declare it on each instance. But if it's something specific, you can import it there. And then you have a data function. In the beginning, Vue had a data object, but they changed it to a function that returns an object. This is actually your internal state. So the component state should be declared there. You can get state or data from the parent. You can get it from other places, but this is like the internal. And if it's a small app, you have everything there. You have both UI things and you have data logic related to the app there. If you have a bigger app, maybe you want to have UI state on the component and you want to have business logic data on another place, not on the component. That is, of course, a choice for each developer in each business, but if you have bigger apps, you might want to talk about Vuex store, you want to talk about a dedicated object for state, whatever. But this is what we have. So sun position, this is static right now, I'm not changing it anywhere. Oh yeah, I'm mixing a bit Swedish and English, sorry. This is kind of how fast the rocket should go. Vinkel, it means in Swedish angle. Sorry for that, so it's just how the rotation should be. And then you have the position of the rocket, yeah. So now it starts on the 0, 0. And then if it's traveling or not, it's a boolean to turn it on and off. And what I'm doing here, I'm not sure this is the right way to do it. I was not concerned on performance. But what I'm doing is like an interval of every 50 milliseconds, I'm checking the state of things. Because if I press a key down, I don't want to fire like the browser fires all the time. I don't want to throttle it either. I don't want to explain my kids what the bounce function and throttle function is. I just wanted to do simple. So this is enough for me. So when I press key down, I call the on key press method on my app. I will talk more about that. Then this mounted function, this is part of the Vue API, and this is called as soon as the instance is deployed to the DOM. So you have a method, a hook, a callback that is triggered when you create the instance before it's attached to the DOM, and then you have this one that is called when it's attached to the DOM. You want to do different things with it. Computed. Here it starts to get interesting. This is where Vue for me shines the most. I'm not sure if you're aware of JavaScript's internals, but since a while ago we were able to detect when an object's property is being changed. You cannot do like var or const or let variable name equals something, and if you change it, you can't know if it changed the value. It's not possible in JavaScript. But if you make an object, and inside that object you change a property of it, then you can trigger it. You know that it's being changed. You know that it's being read. You have getters and setters in object properties, and that made things very different in JavaScript. And because of that, Vue can read dependencies of the instance. So this dot traveling, for example, Vue can detect if that changes. And when that changes, it will recompute. It will call again all the computed functions that depend on that one. Here, actually none of that does, but Vinkel, the angle, if it changes, then it will recall this function that will return the style of the rocket HTML image. So it will rewrite this one. And the good thing with this, you don't re-render the whole DOM tree, you just re-render, you just change the attribute of that DOM node. So everything on the computed is run, it's called once when you create the instance, and then it's called only again if something of the this dot property changes. So if nothing of these properties change, it will never compute again that computed property. which is really, really powerful, I think. So rocket style, sun style, it's there. It's used once. I never use it again yet. And then is near sun is part of the roadmap that we're going to develop maybe next weekend. Let's see. And then we have something else that is part of the Vue API, which is also quite interesting. It's called watchers. So these ones, computed properties, they react and compute again if something inside them changes. And watcher, you can track specific properties of the instance. Like you can track this value, you can track this value, you can also track the value of the data object that you gave. So everything that changes, if you have a registered watcher, it will trigger for you, and yeah, you can run code on that. You can react on it. I'm not using it. Do something. It's like to do. And then I have methods here on key press. So if I press the arrow right, arrow left, and then the space and the R, I don't know what the R is. Cool. Nice. And then tick time. Tick time is just the function I call on set timeout. It's like a set interval. It's just running every 50 milliseconds to change the position for me. There's other ways to do this, but I did decide to do like this. And then it's just some CSS to make things look like it does. Yeah, and the result, you guys saw it, so it's... Oh, yeah. Anything about this that you would like to talk more specific about, or you're curious or have comments on? No? Cool. Good. I made a small fiddle that I would like to also talk about just fast and explain something that I think is interesting. It's related to what I just said. So I have these two computed properties. One is called full name. Swedish and English mixed. Full name, sorry, and when someone is born. The idea is just, I have someone here, I have the date of birth, and then I have the first name and the last name, and then if I change this, it changes, and if I change here, it changes there. What I would like you to check is that the computed properties, they just react to the thing that changed. So if I change the first name or the last name, this function is called, and you can see that it's counting more there. I will be so. And the other ones do not get called if it's not related to them. This for me was a bit confusing in the beginning. I thought, oh, but everything is re-rendering, everything is like computing again. But it's not. It's really specific to the thing that you're changing, and that makes Vue very powerful because you can have a very big app, but you're just changing something very little, and it will not re-render everything. React is the same, but this is the Vue API, so I wanted just to check that with you. And some other things that are Vue specific is how you handle click events and stuff. And this is also a bit magic because it's Vue's way to parse this kind of HTML-ish templates that you have. So on the button plus, when I click on it, I run the function increment and I pass the value of a 1. If I press the button minus on the click, I run the function increment. And these functions are inside an object called methods in Vue. You have it here, and then you have the function increment. And again, you would expect, oh, but it should be like this dot increment, right? Yeah, but that's the thing. You expose everything to the template. Every property of Vue's objects or instance, you expose to the template, and then you can call it just directly. So the return of the data, every computed property, all methods, and there is things called filters. All the props that you get from parents, you can call them directly like this. Use them on the template. Good. Back to my slides. So one question that I had in the beginning, and it was kind of hard to find good practices because there was not much written about it. I had to go to Angular and React and the bigger apps in those worlds to get answers. But where to have state? And you can have state in the server. In our case, since we are a medical app, you don't want to have too much state on the front end of two reasons. Because first, people can go to the console and get out too much information that you should not have because it's medical data. And the other reason is it can get outdated. So you can end up in a situation you have data that you're showing to a doctor that the nurse just changed 5 minutes ago, and if you don't sync with the server, it can be messy. So in some cases it's better if you open part of an app, it just calls the server, gets the fresh data, and that's it. So you don't have data being handled on the front end. It's just like a mirror of what's happening. You might want to have state on the component. As I said before, I think it's in bigger apps, it's kind of easy to reasonable that you have UI state on the component. If you want to open an accordion, if you want to like show something that is UI, you have it on the component. Otherwise, you might want to have something dedicated to it. And the thing is, you want to have something like source of truth. This is not new. You guys probably know this since many years. But if you have state all over the app, it's a mess. And for us that has medical data, you have to be very careful what you're showing. It's the right student and it's fresh data. So we have a store for it in our app, and you can have either Vuex, which is Vue's official store. This is kind of good with Vue. It's opinionated. I mean, you can have it or not. But Vue comes with the whole package. This is how you do store. This is our solution for it. And that's actually very good. You don't have to think about that. And you can also have a dedicated object. You can have a normal JavaScript object, or you can have a Vue instance as a store. Actually, behind the scenes, that's what Vue does. It gives you a Vue instance per store. But you can have it just outside Vuex and don't import the whole library Vuex. And yeah, in some cases it's faster because Vuex has some logic also. So these were things that I fought with in the beginning, and then I also had kind of troubles how to pass state. So if I have state that I need to pass to children components or through my app, how to do that? That was difficult to think because yeah, Vue API for me was new and I had to fight with these things. So props, I suppose you guys know what it is. React has exactly the same concept, and it's passing data from parent to child. And in React you can have hooks and you can have callbacks and methods for reacting when the prop changes. In Vue it's reactive, so it just, you don't have to call any function when things changes, it just propagates. It's like a flow, reactivity flow. You can have events from child to parent, so you can have events upwards. You cannot have events from parents to children because the props does that for you. If the prop changes, the children will react to it. There will be reactivity. But from children up to pass data, you can emit events, and the Vue's API for that is $emit. I will show a bit of that. You can have something called event bus. We went through this solution when we needed to open dialogues in the app, because you want to open dialogues from all over the place and you want to open one dialogue. You want to have like a high order component for dialogue and then put inside it whatever. So we ended up adding to the prototype of Vue. Maybe today we would do different, but at the time it was our solution. A Vue component, so that we can call it and emit events to it and put data in it, and then yeah, react to that on the whole app. Then you have Vuex actions and getters. I will talk about that. You can change the state in Vuex, and you can get the state from Vuex, the store. And then you have, of course, the server communication that you can pass the state that way to the server or to the app if you have like sockets.io or if you have pusher or whatever to give you ping the app back. Sometimes you have apps that are separated, microservices or whatever, and the only common point is the server, so you want to like do a triangle and get the data back. Yeah, so one thing that we struggled with, because we were refactoring a very big backbone app, we couldn't do everything directly, so we had to start replacing parts of the app. And that was quite tricky because it's totally different generations of JavaScript, totally different, even JavaScript versions, what Vue can do and what Backbone could do. So I'll go through this. If it's complex or something, tell me. I'm happy to break it down. I created the first object called props data, and there I add two props that I want to pass to my child component. So now I'm in Backbone, and the child component will be a Vue component. Subviews is a specific Backbone view that is rendered, and I want to put it inside my Vue app. So I have Backbone, I mount a Vue instance, and then I want to sneak a Backbone view into it, because we didn't have time to refactor the post-it application in this sprint, or we were Kanban, but whatever. So I passed a Backbone view through Vue.js, and that's how I did it. And then I have these entries. I will be showing what it is, but it's basically an array, and I want to add data to it. Here it's tricky, because if you want to make Vue reactive, you cannot change anymore the array, or you can't change that array, but you can't just replace for another array, because then you lose the pointers. You have to have the same array, so that when you change it, Vue will react to it. And then we have a specific function. This is kind of a communication callback between Backbone and Vue. If I want to remove something from this entries array, I will call the function and do it on the Backbone side. So I will splice the array. Again, I cannot replace the array, because otherwise Vue will stop tracking reactivity on it. It's not observing it anymore. I have to keep the same array, because I'm in two different apps. If it's inside Vue, it will work, but different apps I have to do like this. So I will get the index of the ID I want to remove, and then just splice, and that Vue can handle. It will react to that. And then I have the Backbone view. We created a view for Bixukrook, which is our front-end app in Vue. So it's just a Backbone view where we instantiate a Vue instance, like new Vue, pass it an object, and it pops up in the DOM, in the app. I called it sidebar, and then I passed the props data to it. And when somewhere in the app I press sidebar add, then I want that to push into the entries. Let me show you what I'm talking about. This is our dev environment, so you can take pictures. There's no students here, nothing important at least. This is our sidebar that you can expand and hide. And this is one of the views that we have. And this is the post-it view that I told you about. This one. So this is Backbone. This is Vue. And this is Backbone. We didn't have time to refactor that. It has rich text and stuff. You don't want to mess with that. So we just left it for now. We will refactor it. It will be great, but not now. So I was very happy to find that there was a way to inject Backbone components into Vue. That was really neat. And then you have a student with a medical journal, and you want, sorry, I will change this one. Here is the entries array that I told you about, and you want to say, oh, but I would like to see this journal on the sidebar. We're working on it. It's not styled yet. It will be looking better. But so I just added. I called that event sidebar column add. It went to Backbone, added the ID to the array, and then it shows here on my Vue app. And then I can remove it, and it will call again the codes I showed you, which is a callback to remove the ID. where is this stuff? I'll show you here. So in the main view, this is the part of the code that I was talking about. I'll just zoom in a bit. And then in the sidebar, which is the view component, I will just focus on the part of it so you don't get overwhelmed. This is the journal entry, and if I choose to remove one of them, it will call remove journal entry. And this is like one of the this dot something that is part of the view instance. And in this case it's a prop. So it's passed to me by the parent. It's here. And this one you've seen on the backbone code, right? So props that I send to view is subviews, entries, then I add one more here, remove journal entry. And this is the props that I'm receiving inside the view instance. And this one is a function. Vue is quite good in typing. You can use TypeScript in Vue also. So I define it's a function, it's required, and I can use it everywhere in my Vue instance. Questions? Is this even interesting? Yeah, sure. Yeah, the problem is that I want to access this array and I can't use it before I declare it. So that was the only thing. Yeah. Actually, when I'm calling this function, maybe it would be there, but not props data. Yeah. Actually, I want to entries, but even before that, I need to access the props data. That's why I had it outside. Any questions? No? I'm really happy if you guys ask questions. I mean, the whole point me starting the meetup was like, can we exchange knowledge or just press me, put questions so that I develop. Okay, cool. I will go on. You're happy to... Oh, that was not what I wanted to show. There. Again, please stop me and ask questions. That one you've seen. Yeah, I showed this actually. And let's continue. So Vuex, as I said, Vuex is the Vue's official state management library, and it's very good that they have one officially supported. And the diagram for how it works is like this. You have the Vue components. If they want to change something in the store, if they want to change data, the state, they send a dispatch, and dispatch is actually the name of the method. So they dispatch to something called actions. Actions do commits, and that is called a mutation, and then you change the state, which is actually an object called state that you can consume in the component. There is actually something else. I don't know why they didn't add. It's called getters. I will talk about it, but this is kind of the core of it. There is a very handsome dev tools to Vue that you can really inspect almost everything. It's really, really useful. And as they say, as good practices, communication with the backend, it should happen here. It should not happen on the component level. It should happen here. And the action is actually asynchronous, so you can return a promise from it. And there is where you should do all the asynchronous logic. And when you're done, have the data that you want to write to the state, then you do a commit. Then you do like store.commit and change the state. And this is sync, and that is async. And then you change the object which you can like reactively consume. This is on the Vuex docs. It's useful. Check it out. So if you have a component and you want to write to the store, you can use this $store dispatch, and the dispatch method takes a string, which is the name of the action you want to call, and then takes as a second argument, takes the value that you want to pass to it. And you have also something that's called map actions, and this is actually on the methods object on the Vue instance. Please tell me if you don't follow, because I can just bring up the code and show you. But in the Vue object where you declare the component, you have like the data, you have the computed, and then you have the methods. That's like functions, that tools that the instance uses. You can spread some actions there. You can add some methods to it, importing from Vuex, so that you can, like, it's just making your life easier so that you don't have to be so verbose. And you can change the store with those methods. And to get data from the store, you can either call on the instance this $store and then the path to your data that you want, or you can use map state. Just let me get the value of the state, and you can use map getters. What's the difference of state and getters? It's more or less the same as in the Vue instance. You had the data object that is like the internal state, and then you have computed properties, which is some data transformation using that state. So if for some reasons you need not the original state but a transformation of it, you could use a getter to get a bit tweaked data. I can give you two examples. For example, in a calendar in our app, we use Unix timestamps on the server, and then we want to have milliseconds on the front end. So the state is the same as the server, but then in the getter we convert it to milliseconds and actually the JavaScript data objects. Another case is the logic in our calendar. You can have an event, but then you also have logic. Who can see this event? Can the doctor see this event? Can the nurse see this event? Can the principal of the school see this event? Some things is medical data the principal should not see. So we have a getter to combine all the events, the logic for permissions, and then it gives you the result. It's like a computed property, but on Vuex level. It's really, really useful. So if you want to write to the store, you can use those. If you want to get data from the store, you can use those. Questions so far? Yeah. 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 Yes. Yeah. Yes. Very good question. I don't know if you guys heard, but basically you can inspect the data that you have on the front end, and it can be a point that you should not even have that data. If the principal should not see that data, it should not be possible to inspect the store for data. And that's a very good point. There is two things about that. If you are in production mode, Vuex is not available. I'm sorry, Vuex is available. DevTools is not available. So that part of the app is closed. Vue protects you closing the DevTools in production. And the second one is never put sensitive data in the front end if it should not be there from the beginning. So in our case, we just put IDs of objects, so just pointers, and then we do the logic, mismatch it, and then when we know what to get, we get it from the server. And we have on the server side also matching, does this user have authorization to see this? So we do check both on the front and the back end. But what we expose in the store, if someone could get access to it, is just IDs of objects, so that we just can get the IDs of the database tables, whatever, so that we get the data. Very good. Yeah, so if you want to see a store example, let me bring up some DevTools here. Oh, that was big. This is how the Vue DevTools looks like. This first tool on that menu is the component list. So here you can see different components, and if I have this sidebar open, sorry, we have some CSS issues there. You can see different components here, and you can see the sidebar itself, and then you can see the props it gets. You can see its values. You can see the data object. You can see the computed properties with the computed result, with computed value of it. and you can see the Vuex bindings. So what this component is using from the store. And then you can see that the journal entry is really, really big, ugly object. This is like legacy code all over the place, just adding more keys, more keys. But you have some data, but most of it is just IDs pointing to other objects in the database. And then, yeah, refs. I didn't talk so much about it. React has the same concept, so that you can access the DOM element. So what I would like to talk with you now is how we solved the part of communicating with the server and putting the data on the store, because you can be like blinded and each component goes and talks to the server, but in that case you end up importing state to the component, and you don't want to do that, and you want to have a nice app that reacts to everything. You want to change the name of the student or the permission of one user, and then it just propagates reactively through the app. And we did something at work that we call VRR, Vue REST Resource. And this is a library that it's on GitHub. I think it's so niched for Vue and a REST API that I don't think it fits all use cases, but I think some of the logic in it you might, it might be interesting to hear about. So what we did is there is this concept in Vuex of map getters and map state, and we wanted to use that, but for data that we don't have yet. So I want to have a computed property to which I can tell what endpoints to call, so that it will go and get data for me, and I don't have even to care about doing all the AJAX requests, the fetch to get that data. Because, as I said, we have a lot of separated objects around the app. We just want to have IDs going through the app on the front end. We don't want to send sensitive data, so we want to have this kind of routing and being able to get things asynchronous from the server. So this is the Vuex API and logic, and we added this VRR component or library to do the talking between the Vue components and the Vuex. I will show you an example. There is this JSON free website that you can test and do things. I made a demo there that I hope it can be useful. Imagine this situation. You have a photo object where you have the album ID, the ID of the photo. This is often the database index of that entry. You have title, URL, and thumbnail URL. And you want to know whose picture that is. And it's not on that object. You need to go and ask the server, oh, can you give me the album one? Yeah, sure, here is the album one. It's from this user. Okay, I go and get that object, and then I can get the name. And to do this, you would need 3 requests to the server. First, you have to get the list of photos, then you choose one of them, go and get that one, go and get that one. And if you do this all over the app, it gets kind of verbose. You're doing the same code all over the place. So we wanted to make this shorten. So we came up with this kind of API. We want to spread this on the computed properties of the Vue instance. We tell it what name it should leave in the instance. So in the computed you can declare like functions, shorthand functions, and then you can use this dot space rocket position or space style whatever, but in this case you will be able to use this dot user. So it will give you a key user on your Vue instance. Then you configure it with the endpoints that you want, and you tell it where to start. So this is the first ID of the photo that I chose, and then it will like go get this one. When it has it, it will get the album ID, go to the albums, and in the albums will get me the user ID, and then go to the users, and here I just want the whole thing. We are really happy about this. It made our life so much easier. Yeah. Basically, this kind of fetching. I had a demo for this. Where is it? I think I have it here. Yeah, sorry. I should have opened this before. You have the repo on GitHub if you want to check it out. If you have questions now or after, you have 1 year green card to ask me questions about it. So this is the demo. So imagine I have a picture. Well, I have a lot of pictures here. I will choose one. It will show me the ID of the picture and the thumbnail, and then it will you will see fetching, so because it's working and getting the rest of the data. Let's try it. Fetching user ID and fetching username. That was kind of slow. Take another one. Yeah, it's not so fast. It's the internet connection, it's not the app, of course. Yeah, so you get the point, right? And how does this look? This looks like this. So the footprint of the library in the app is really small. It's just, I mean, on the component level at least, you just have to use this. It's really, really neat. You don't have to write AJAX requests on the component. You just write the getter, so you get like the information back. You have to define the endpoints, yeah, and this you have to import from declare once place somewhere in the app. So you configure it and then you use it on all components. You don't have to do it on component basis. And user is what you will be consuming later. You can see here user.name, user.id. This .user that we talked about, that gets exposed in the template. And then you have to tell it which one to start. And this is, yeah, I'm passing the Vue instance to the library, so it can consume this .chosen.id. So here this will be used by the library. It will not use eval. You don't have to be afraid of that. It will just do a reducer on the instance like this dot. It will remove the this and then just use like object nesting drill down kind of. When I mount this, I have to get the first list of all the pictures, and that's what I do here. I just have defined the endpoint for photos. I call the list method, so get me all of them, and that's how the app can actually start. This can be passed as a prop, but in this case I call it on the mounted. Questions about this? Yeah? I have 1 minute. Yeah, good. You're welcome. So back to my slides. Thank you. If you guys have any questions, sorry. Oh, good. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, great. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's JavaScript. You could, it depends on how deep down you want to drill and make it your own. I mean, make your own solutions. In this case, we were kind of high level that I was very happy. I didn't have to go and create like, change some backbone internals. But I think you can, any library, you are able to create bridges. Yeah. If you, yeah, it might be complex, but it's possible. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. You're welcome to talk with me if someone wants. Yeah.